This episode of the Central Valley Music Educators Podcast is sponsored by Kings County Trophy and Engraving in Hanford. Visit them online at kctrophy.com. Welcome to the Central Valley Music Educators Podcast. I'm your host, Rob Bentley. On this week's show, we'll hear from Anne Fennell, CMEA President, who has an update for us on Prop 28. You can follow the podcast on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, Google, YouTube, or wherever you download your favorite shows. You can also listen on our website at cvmepodcast.com. Well, I'm really excited to welcome back to the show Anne Fennell. How you doing, Anne?
I'm doing really well. How are you, Rob? It's May.
We're getting towards the end of school, that's for sure. Hey, a few weeks ago, I began to hear from many of my listeners that school districts were starting to peel back the layers of Prop 28 funds and what they could be used for and what they couldn't be used for. Some even started telling me and their staffs that like money was being cut or reduced, or there was so many myths going on. So I reached out to CMEA and for some clarification and got some great information. I thought it would be great to have you come on the show to clear up a lot of misinformation that's out there, misinformation and myths. Where should we start?
Well, let's play a little game. How about, you ask me a question and I tell you if it's fact or a myth.
Okay, I'm down. All right, so fact or fiction, the Prop 28 money is going away.
That is such a myth. Oh my gosh. The Prop 28 money is law. So the only way to get rid of the law is to vote against it. And that's not going to happen. So we had 64% say, yes, it is law. Just because it's not here and we don't have clarity doesn't mean that it's not going to be here. It is here in perpetuity to ensure that the arts are succeeding for the rest of our lives.
All right. Next one. Fact or fiction, the money will be available July 1st to districts.
Well, ideally, it's a fact. That is the start of the fiscal year. But actually, it's kind of a myth right now. We've heard that it was supposed to be July and then August. And then a couple weeks ago, I heard that it might be even delayed into December, given that there might have to be, and we don't know if this is for sure, if it's just chatter, that the principals at the school sites might have to create a plan to be approved as part of the accountability portion. And then once that's approved, then monies would be released. I think what's happening is this. They really don't have protocols for it because it's so new. And the first year is always rough out the gate. It's tough. So it's supposed to be July 1 fiscal year, but I think it's a little bit of a delay until we know more about how they're going to hold accountability portions to this as well. There are other factors to that. Let's see if it comes out in the questions.
So the principals might have to get together and develop a plan.
Well, okay, the rumor has it that a couple of weeks ago in April, the California Department of Education told the state and federal program leaders that there might be a plan that they have to develop. Now, this came out. Everyone is a little bit in their kerfuffle, like, where is this information posted? No one really knows. But that was what was told to these individuals. Have we seen this anywhere on the Department of Education website? We have not. Have we heard this anywhere? No. But that was spoken to those program leaders.
All right. Fact or fiction? My principal says we can't pull the money from site to site.
That is a myth, because what you can do is you can have it at your site, and let's pretend you have enough only for a 0.2 of a teacher. But let's pretend the school site down the road has a 0.8. The 0.8 down the road and the 0.2 from your site can be combined to a full FTE. So you can, while you're not pulling them in one common account, you're going to say, I'm going to pay for that 0.8 and I'm going to pay for this 0.2. And together it makes a full-time educator. And we see many sites doing this because, quite honestly, there are small schools that don't have enough money. So how do you get that better bang for your buck? You look around the school district and go, oh, this person could feed this program. How do I do that? Maybe it's an elementary to middle feed. The challenging part is the schedule, right? But the reality is a program And a position is more attractive when it's full time. If it's part time, people have less skin in the game and they don't want to really just come in and they feel inconsistent. So, anytime you can take a partial FTE and connect it with another partial FTE to give it a full time position, you'll get a better chance of finding a teacher.
All right, fact or fiction? Funds can be used for digital art classes.
Oh, that is such a fact because it's anything in the arts. And in fact, it says, say, computer coding. So you can do, let's pretend you're looking at this art and you're coding to get specific colors, or you are creating a code to create different types of sounds for music composition. Yeah, you can. It's associated with it. So whatever is going to support those arts programs, and digital media is one of the 5 art forms in the state of California. So whatever that digital media might be.
Okay, this is a big one. You ready?
Okay.
Fact or fiction? My principal says that he can release staff and rehire again with Prop 28 funds.
Red, huge light. It is a myth. It is fiction. It is not true. I don't know what else to say except that that's against the law. So that would be that supplement or supplant. The Prop 28 monies were used or were created originally to supplement the programs that already exist. So this is here and in place. We're going to expand the programs to support more students involved in the arts. But if he is going to, or she is going to release an individual and then rehire with Prop 28 monies, that's not supplementing. That is what we call supplanting. So basically, they're going to take away that teacher and then rehire with Prop 28 monies. That is against the law. The goal is to supplement and increase the program, not to replace the funding source of the current teacher. Again, if that happens, you could put your parents in motion. You could talk to the school district because, quite honestly, that would be an issue with an audit, because the audit clearly says, or the law clearly says, that there are going to be accountability portions in place. And the audit then would show that this was supplanting and using Prop 28 monies to pay for a teacher that already existed. If you know that's happening, make noise about it now so that the audit down the road doesn't create a legal issue for the school district. You're actually helping the school district be aligned with the law. Tell them you're saving them a lawsuit.
Right, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, fact or fiction? The funds can be diverted to other subject matter in the curriculum.
That is such a myth. It is such a piece of fiction. It is not right. It cannot. It has to be solely aligned with the arts and what is clearly stated inside that law. And they can go into Prop 28 and they can see every single subject and every single example that exists. So it cannot be for English. Let me give you an example, by the way. I was in a budget meeting and they knew they weren't going to use all the money. And so the principal said, well, let's just roll over that portion for the next year, because you can roll over funds for up to 3 years. And the question goes, well, where do we put it in the budget? What column? And an individual said, well, we can just throw it into teacher hourly. And I stopped and I said, hey, all, you can't put it into teacher hourly because that money is not available for every teacher. So somehow you have to mark it in your budget. Let's pretend 10,000 was rolled over. That's rolled over. It still has to be for music and the arts. And in that case, then you might even want to document what's the percentage of that money? What's 80%? What's 19% of that funds? How much have you spent already of the money in 80% of credentialed and classified employees, or 19% in professional learning or supplies? What is that percentage? So really know it. And if you're going to roll it over, know where that money is. Don't let them just throw that somewhere in some little column, because then anyone has access to it. And then when you go to have the audit and accountability, suddenly it's gone. That would be an issue.
So let's expand on that a little bit if we could, Anne. I know one of the questions that has come up is it's going to take some districts, especially smaller districts who maybe don't have a VAPA coordinator. It's going to take a while to develop a full-scale music program and hire staff. What happens if they don't use the money that's allocated for a certain year? So let's say the money comes in, mid-year next year at some point. If they don't spend the money in 23, 24, what happens to that money after that?
So you can roll it over for up to 3 years. So let's pretend you're a very small school and you only have $10,000 to $15,000. And if you're like, God, that's not going to help me right now, you can roll it over for up to 3 years before it'll disappear. In that case, then, so let's pretend, let's say you have $15,000, but then in 3 years you have $45,000. That might be a place where you can go, gosh, and talk with the district and say, hey, we have enough money for this. Could you match it? Or now let's really find what we're going to do well with that money. It also buys us a little bit of time to say, let's do right by the program. It does concern me when people just want to spend it quickly, but they haven't really done an analysis of what's next, what do the students need, what programs are missing some important parts. So while we all love music, sometimes that's the first to get money. Sometimes that's the one with the largest band booster group or the booster group. What about the other arts programs that might have been really struggling for years? So that happens to come down to a very important, honest, vulnerable conversation with the folks at your school, in your department, and seeing how do we make this work well? So don't rush to spend it. You can roll it over and then really do well by the students in the school.
Yeah, that came up in my own district, being a little bit smaller district, well, a lot smaller district, is that some were real quick to go out and hire a bunch of instructors and maybe even full credit FTE teachers. And now they're starting to wonder, did we move too fast? And luckily, with my team, we're working on a plan to implement this over maybe several years rather than just rushing into it. So that's good. Let's go back to the game here. Okay, fact or fiction? We'll know the approximate amount that our district will be receiving.
That is a fact. People are saying I don't know. Well, the budget, actually, the Prop 28 monies are based on the previous year's total budget, right? The budget. So the money that we're going to be getting for this coming fiscal year is based on the 22-23 year budget. We already know what that budget is. So whatever 1% of that is for your district, basically, that's what your Prop 28 monies are going to be for your district. So it's not magic math later or they're going to take it away. No, we know that for the 23-24 school year, the Prop 28 monies are based on the 22-23 school year. So it's a pretty close estimate. It's not going to be exact. I can't say it's going to be exact because I don't think anything's ever exact in a budget in education, but it's going to be pretty darn close. We already know. Now, that also wants me to tell you that you need to think in advance. If you see declining enrollment in your school district, you're going to know that if your enrollment went down this year, then in subsequent years, if the enrollment continues to go down, you're going to see that projection, right? The enrollment goes down. This money is based on the enrollment and the number of Title I kids, all of those things. So the monies might change depending on the enrollment.
Okay, so next one, fact or fiction? Prop 28 requires school districts to hire fully credentialed arts teachers.
So that is a fact and it's a fiction. So the money is available. So it's a fact in that the money can be used for credentialed individuals. It can also be used. This is where the fiction comes in, a little myth that people were thinking it's not for classified. It is for classified as well. So in the law, it states credentialed and classified. So it's important to note that maybe it's kind of like a walk-on coach that becomes a classified employee, maybe, and they help with a certain amount of time, only a couple hours, during the fall or whatever it might be. Maybe, that's they're running sectionals for you. That might be a classified employee. Now, here's the important part about that. If you know that your school district does not have job descriptions for this type of classified employee, the time to start working on those job descriptions is now, because it takes a while to go through union. It takes a while to go through and to be approved by the board. We put our job descriptions at St. Unified months ago, and it's going to take a while to get those approved so that our job descriptions are clear about what they are doing for this arts program. It's not just a generic coach.
Yeah, that's a really good explanation. Okay, next one, fact or fiction? Mm-hmm. No one at the state level is assigned to head up Prop 28 distribution.
That is a fact, and that is a sorry, sad fact, because it has not been assigned to anybody yet. And this is why we're seeing such really tenuous timelines and not knowing what to do. And it's the wild, wild west of interpretation about all this language. If someone had been assigned immediately, then a lot of this would have been out of the way. We do know that CTE is answering questions about Prop 28. Someone has been assigned at CTE. So if you put in a question on the website, which, by the way, you now have that link to attach this podcast, someone is assigned. They have answered approximately, I'm going to open that link. They've answered 11 questions so far. I personally have submitted like 4, but I don't see my answers in there yet because I think some of my questions, that's not, that's the interpretation stuff.
Some staffers on it.
Yeah, somewhere. Well, maybe, I don't know. And the thing is that they can't be expected to be the pros of Prop 28, right? They need to find someone who really knows this law, and it's not part of CTE. It should be separate from CTE.
For sure. Okay, here's a good one. Fact or fiction? There is a document that people can ask questions to CMEA and a document that people can ask questions of the Department of Education. You already hit on this one, but go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, I gave it away. That is a fact. CMEA has been working on this document. It's sitting as an open folder, and you can ask questions into that. That has been open since November, and questions continue to pile. And I go in there. In fact, this weekend I'll go in there and double check it again and see what's not been answered. So those questions are being answered through CMEA, and they're also being answered through the California Department of Education. And the answers are being replied sometimes through an email, but oftentimes are being posted on their website. So ask away. None of my questions have been answered yet. Waiting for them. I would love for them to provide guidance on the waiver. I would love. Someone said, oh my gosh, that they're trying to work on the language about supplement and supplant, but that language already exists in the Department of Education. So we're surprised about that. But there are other programs. Maybe they need to explain also, like, how do you roll this money over? What is that going to look like? And then the other big question that people are having are, what's the accountability portion of this? What's that going to look like every year? That's an important question.
Yeah, the accountability piece is definitely going to be take a look at that for sure.
Yeah, and I have to wonder, I'm thinking, how I had said, they might have to make a plan. I am wondering if that's going to be the baseline plan, and then they do the accountability and they compare contrast. I don't know. I'm curious about this plan that we heard about and what that might look like. I'm hoping it's a form, just check, fill out quickly, send it off. I don't know. But I'm going to encourage so many music educators to document what already exists in the school district so that suddenly they don't see funding sources change.
Well, Anne, that's certainly a lot of information, and I want to thank you for clearing up a lot of those myths. Some of them I had heard, some of them I had not heard, and I know we're all learning. This is a learning process for all of us. It's a great time and definitely arts education in California, and I want to thank you and all the people at CMEA and all the arts organizations that helped get this passed in November. And it's exciting, but again, it's all new to us, and we have to kind of feel our way around to see how this is all going to play out. But we know that we have documents. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the links to all of the documents that Anne mentioned in the show notes so that you can look for yourself and you can ask questions and all of that. And Anne says that they'll be updating those with answers to your questions. And what else, Anne? What can we do?
Gosh, I think it's just, we have to just be patient. And know the first year out the gate, we're so excited to jump into this. But I think, take a beat, pause, and know it's going to be there in perpetuity. And it will roll out. The first year is always a little bit rough. And we get to hold the beauty of what we do, and we get to hold the integrity of what we teach with the phenomenally talented folks that we have across the state. And hold on to that and know that this money will be in place. We just need to take a moment and pause.
Well, that's all the time we have for this week's show. Coming up next week, we'll have Scott McKee on the show to share with us all of the great things going on at the American Band College in Ashland, Oregon this summer. Band directors are not going to want to miss it. I'd like to thank Kings County Trophy in Hanford for sponsoring this episode of the Central Valley Music Educators Podcast. If you're interested in sponsoring a future episode of the show, or you have a topic that you'd be interested in hearing about, please contact me at cvmepodcast@gmail.com. If you enjoyed the show, please consider leaving a review, sharing on social media, or telling a friend. For more information about the show, you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube at Central Valley Music Educators Podcast. Have a great week.